Okay, right, we're going to go into how to make conjugate work for raw. This is part 2. Today I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of a conjugate program for raw powerlifting. I'm going to be as honest as possible. Obviously, I am slightly biased, but I'm trying to be as honest as possible because I don't use conjugate for everybody. It's a tool I do like to use, but there is people that are more suited to different programs. So what we're going to go into here, we'll start off with the cons. So cons, you'll hear everyone saying lack of specificity. That could also be seen as a pro. It depends at what level you're at in your powerlifting training. If you're in your first year of powerlifting, then lack of specificity could be a big problem because you need that time under the, you just need to learn how to squat, bench, deadlift. You need to be doing that over and over again to learn the movement. But you get to a point where you start lifting decent numbers, squatting and benching, deadlifting every single session isn't going to necessarily make you better because you're going to have imbalances and weaknesses and sticking points that are then going to need addressing. And obviously you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you're only just squatting, then and you're weak out of the whole of a squat and you just squat for that, then you're not really going to strengthen that area. So next point, requires good auto regulation or a good coach. So the big problem with conjugate is you are going to be maxing out twice a week. So people would go, maxing out twice a week, that's a quick way to get injured. But it's not if it's done correctly. If you've got the right people around you or you're experienced enough to know when to call it at that. You want to be looking for a top set at RP9. So most of these programs nowadays are doing sets of set of 5 at RP9 or a set of 3 at RP9 or a single at RP9 each session and doing that 4 times a week. So it's not actually unheard of, it's just the word max effort is what puts people off. What a max effort is used for is to identify where you're weak. So when you're going into your training sessions, you don't want to be just doing what you're good at, you want to be doing what you're shit at, and then identifying where you're weak and building that through the repetition method. So next point, which I've kind of gone into a little bit, is it's not necessarily beginner friendly. So like I said before, there's not much specificity and you need a good auto regulation or a good coach. That makes this not very beginner friendly. If I had somebody who just walked straight through the gym, I knew that they're going to be in the sport for 10 years and they've got a good athletic background, they want to get the most out of powerlifting, first thing I would have them doing is squat, bench and deadlift for probably the first 3 years or until they stall at that, until their progression stops. Then I would move them onto more of a conjugate style program. But that moves me on to the next point, you need good technique. You need to be able to know when you're coming back round and doing a comp squat or a comp bench or a comp deadlift, you need to know how to do them. You need to be able to do them like blindfolded. So that's the level of skill that you need to be having, because sometimes you're not going to be doing these movements for 2 to 3 months out of the year. But as we'll go through in how to design a raw template, I will show tips and tricks of how to keep specificity into a conjugate program and makes it a little bit more beginner friendly. So next point is it requires equipment. So this gym here isn't got loads and loads of machines. We've got loads of really good barbells. That's what you need for a conjugate. You need really good barbells, access to them, because they're the main variations that you're going to be using. Bands and chains are a bonus, but most of the time In a raw conjugate program, it's the variation that we're rotating. We're not really adding too much accommodating resistance, because accommodating resistance is good for the multiply powerlifters where they're using a bench shirt and they're getting that spring off the chest and they're struggling to lock out. Obviously, that's where the bands or the chains will kick in the most. That's the bit that they need to strengthen. But in a raw bench press, you're more likely to fail midway or off your chest. So applying accommodating resistance to them places isn't necessarily going to make you that much better. But that doesn't mean there isn't a time and place for it. So next point, it can be used to massage your ego. So if you have a big ego and you've not got anyone reining you in, you could just decide to come into the gym and do a high block pull with a trap bar and lift probably 100 kilos more than you can actually deadlift. And that is going to do absolutely nothing for you other than get you injured and get you burnt out. You need to be doing the movements that you're shit at. You need to be doing stuff like front squats, anything that is going to build your actual comp lifts up. And really, it doesn't really look good on Instagram, because you're rarely going to be lifting weights that are near your actual max, and that's to keep your CNS nice and healthy and not expose you to too much of an overload. So, moving on to the next point, kind of gone into this as well, requires a level of experience and honesty. So the experience is the same as all the other points that I've gone into. You need experience to know how to do all those things. You need honesty. You need to know when to call it where it is. You need to be able to follow the RPE system properly, or the percentage system properly. You want to be working up to around 85% to 90%, and that's of a training max, not of a peaked comp max. So if you struggle with your ego and you're always just lifting for Instagram, it's not the program for you. So last point here, lack of volume if not hitting accessories hard. So if you're one of those people that just come into the gym and just do your squats, and then you're not doing any of your back downs and you're not doing any of your accessories, then this ain't the problem for you. This ain't the program for you, because you ain't gonna get stronger. You get burnt out. The volume in a conjugate program comes from your bodybuilding work, your accessory work. It gets you jacked, but you need to be hitting it hard. We are in a conjugate program, in a raw powerlifter. We are skilled bodybuilders. Sorry. So 20% of our work is powerlifting, 80% of our work is bodybuilding. But we're identifying those weaknesses in the 20% of the work and building skill, and then the 80% we're building those weaknesses, building tissue and building strength. So let's move on to the pros now. So complete opposite of that, lots of variation, which also makes it very fun. So as long as you know where your weaknesses are at, you have loads of tools in the toolbox to go at. You can pick loads of variations, as long as you're not really like coming too far away from actually the power lifts, and you're just using variations that are actually going to make you better. It can be quite fun, because every training session is going to be different. So that leads me on to the next point. No overuse injuries. Most powerlifters get sore elbows, sore shoulders, sore low backs. That is because the low bar squatting every single week, the benching every single week, the deadlifting every single week, the cores are weak, the chest is strong, the back is weak. And having that low bar position causes loads of stress on the shoulders, wrecking your elbows. You do that every single week, and you're squatting over 200 kilos every week, you're going to get overuse injuries. And that's when you see these people coming into the sport, smashing it for 2 years, and then they've gone the next year. This is the program for longevity. Next point, max efforts are used to identify sticking points and weaknesses. So like I've got into on the cons, here's the pro of that. So the max effort, you say I'm doing a low box squat, and my low box squat is so much like 50% of my comp squat, then that to me shows me that that is a glaring weakness and I need to build that. So if I bring my low box squat up and I then next time round I get a PB with it, I know that my comp squat is now going to go up even without comp squatting. So a good example of that for me is my floor press. I can bench over 200 kilos. My best floor press is like 170. So to me, that is a massive, massive weakness in my bench press. So every time before I do a bench PB, I do a floor press PB, and it always goes up because that is my weakness. And when you're doing a top single or a top triple, you can see where the bar slows down, and then you can dissect that either yourself or with your coach and start building movements that are then going to strengthen that weakness. It keeps a level of GPP all year round. What does GPP mean? It means general physical preparedness. So just generally how fit you are. So like the last episode, you're constantly doing dynamic effort work. You're constantly staying fit. You're constantly pushing that cardiovascular, which helps you recover more. Obviously, we're powerlifters. We don't need to be that fit to squat 1 rep maxes, but we need to be fit enough to recover from each session. So GPP, I believe, is a really important thing. Next point, can be used in blocks. So that's kind of like it's kind of the opposite of what I'm saying there, but it is actually, you can use it in blocks, and I do use it in blocks for raw powerlifting. So in my off season, I don't do any 1 rep maxes in the gym. So I will do 5 rep maxes and 3 rep maxes, and that keeps my body safe and fatigued. And the off season is about building strength, not testing strength. So I'm using the max effort to see my progression and build my progression, but I'm not trying to fully test it. I'm just trying to see if it's moving in the right direction. So I can go, right, I've just competed, I've done a peak block, so next up I'm going to do a GPP block. I'm going to be doing I'm going to still be doing max effort work, which could be a max effort of 5. Then I'll probably do back downs at 2 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 8, and then I'm going to be doing sled drags. I'm going to be doing 20 reps, 15, 20 reps, and getting myself fit. Next block, I would then move to more of a hypertrophy block. So I would probably still keep my max efforts as 5s, and my back downs as 8s or 5s, and I would be using things to put tissue on, and I would be growing muscle that then I would transfer into a strength block, which I might then start incorporating 3s. The intensity starts rising, and I'm starting to do my back downs as 3s as well, and just getting more my feet in the water with the strength work, and then you're ready to compete again. So you're going to be using a peak block. So the beauty of Conjugate is you can do all this year round, but there's nothing to say that you can't, for the last 6 weeks up to a comp, just do a linear block to bring all that specificity back and all that strength that you've built, and push that towards competing, because you want to increase your specificity towards the comp so you can display the strength that you've built. This obviously it sounds the opposite of what Conjugate is, but this is the beauty of it. It's an adaptable template. It's not set in stone of what it is, and people don't realise that the Circa Max that was used in the West Side method is pretty much just a linear program. So the last 5-6 weeks, you can just be building up and bringing that specificity right back in, and you're still going to be healthy. You're not going to get any overuse injuries because you've not been hammering it all year round. So next point, you're strong in all angles because you're using multiple different things to get stronger. You're not just strong in a comp bench press. You're strong on your incline. You're strong on your overhead. You're not just a good sumo deadlifter. Your conventional's good. Your block pulls are good. You're strong everywhere. You can't. It's not just a big wrapped squat. Your raw squat's going to be big. Your box squat's going to be big. Your cambered bar squat. Your safety bar squat. All these, you're going to be strong everywhere. And I don't want to just be a one-trick pony. I want to be strong. If I'm training, I want to look strong and I want to be strong. Next point, fast and explosive. So dynamic work, it's teaching you how to be explosive, how to power through reps. Obviously, power is in the name of the game. So that's what we're trying to build. And there's not many programs nowadays that actually apply explosiveness directly in it. It's this program is designed to build explosive power at the same time as the ability to grind. Gives a level of competition to every session. So if you've got a good crew and you're doing similar variations, or you know what they did last week when they was on that same variation, you're trying to beat it. So rising tides raise all ships, and that's what happens because the ceiling gets raised and everybody just gets better, or you get left behind. So lots of next point, lots of tools to use. Like I've gone into, plenty of variation. You've not just got one tool in your toolbox to go at. You've got multiple, and if that one that you've got doesn't work, move on to the next one. Next bit, it uses a build the weakness approach rather than build the strengths. So what does that mean? So it means if you fail a lift, you're looking at where you broke down and how to build that breakdown, rather than a more of a linear or a block approach. You go straight back to squatting, you go straight back to your 5x5s or whatever, and you just carry on building your strengths. That's just, you've got a strong back in your squats, but your legs are weak as piss. Your back's just going to keep on getting stronger. Your legs are always going to be lagging behind. With this, we're going to build the legs and maintain the back, if that makes sense. So, next point, builds muscle. I've gone into that. Lots of bodybuilding work. You need to be hitting your bodybuilding work hard, like properly hard, and not just messing about with the weights. You need to be fully contracted. You need to be actually like training like a bodybuilder, building tissue. So the first 20 to 30 minutes of your session, you want to be a powerlifter. The last 30 minutes or an hour, you want to be a bodybuilder, and you're damaging your joints and your tissue and all that sort of stuff. And then in the bodybuilding work, you want to be building it. You want to feel good at that point. So, don't know how long this video is, but I think I've gone into every pro and con there is there. Obviously, like I said at the beginning, this is my interpretation of it, and this is my opinion of it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's for everyone, but for the right people, it's the best program. But it's not for beginners, so don't rush into this. But what grinds my gears is when people say it doesn't work. It does work. You just gotta work it out. You gotta make sure it works. and leave your ego at the door. So on to part 3 next.